Lessons from the Coop. So I got this idea from my husband. He's a Marine, and he saw our roosters. We've had roosters for, or chickens for a long time. We live on a hobby farm. I guess I should introduce myself. I'm Suzanne Gose. I am the homeschooling mom of 5 kids. 2 are graduated. I've got another one graduating in May, and I am the creator of Flip-Flop Spanish and Spanish Geniuses. So my real job is teaching Spanish, and after homeschooling my kids and being a mom, and then I'm a homesteader. Secondly, we became homesteaders for the lifestyle for the kids, and for us, that nice slow pace of life. And anyhow, it's been wonderful. So we started with chickens. Chickens, I call them the gateway drug to farming, because once you get chickens, you want goats, and once you get goats, you want ducks. And anyhow, it's been wonderful. So my husband's a Marine, and he got this idea of leadership, teaching the children leadership by watching the rooster. He said, all I need to know about leadership is I can learn from the rooster. So as you have your homestead, as you have your homeschool, I highly recommend taking a look at nature, taking a look at the way our property and our land operates, to teach your children those real big life skills that are kind of hard to just say again and again and again. Once they experience it, they're going to get it. So let's get started. We all know we want to raise leaders. We know that we want people that, citizens that when it's time to lead, when it's time to make decisions, they can. So we are going to talk about what is a leader, how do they learn, and then what do we look for in order to teach them that? What do they look for? What do we as parents look for to help them develop this leadership portion of their lives? So first of all, what's a leader? So in that picture, you see, maybe you don't, but there are 2 roosters. There's not just one. There are 2 roosters in that picture. So the first one about a leader is they look different. So you can see their comb is different. It's bigger. They've got the neck feathers that are pointy. So that's how, if you're wondering, is my chicken a rooster or a hen, you can look at their neck feathers if they're pointy, and then their saddle feathers. So you can see against that, the one that's crowing, you can see the saddle feathers right before his plume, before his tail, these big tail feathers. Those are going to be pointy as well. Hens have the rounded ones. The other rooster here is the frizzle. It's all fuzzy, and he's got his wings going as little feathers going out like that. His big portion is not so much the pointy feathers, a little bit, but they also stand upright. So for human leaders, they look different. I can't tell you how many times I've been at a conference and I'm just a vendor, or I'm just a shopper, even homeschooling conference, or I'm just walking around. We all look the same. We all have our name tags on. I don't have anything on me that's different, but kids will come up to me and ask me questions. Where's this or where's that? Or do you know what the problem is with this? Or have you heard? Whatever it is, people will come up to me and ask me questions as if I know things. I say, oh, I'm just a shopper here, or I'm just an attendee. I'm not in charge of anything, but let me help you figure it out. And I'll go and I'll find it for them. And so I think there's something about me personally, and then therefore about your children as you grow them up, that confidence that you have when you are in an atmosphere of how you maintain your position. How do you look around? This is what roosters do. They're constantly scanning. If they hear something, they perk up. They look around. They are large and in charge, and they're making the perimeter. They're walking around the perimeter, looking for danger, looking for any problems between the hens. If there's another younger rooster, he's keeping him in line. And so as we scan the area, the rooster scans the area, have your children look at that and say, do I do that? So what's a leader? Somebody who stands out. They look different. Someone who gets followed. If you're wondering if you're a leader, just check behind you. Who is following you? If there's nobody following, you're not a leader. So that goes back to how you hold yourself and how you carry yourself, and what you do with, we always say, keep your head on a swivel. Roosters do this. If you look at the rooster in the chicken yard, there's always hens following him around. And then someone who has more responsibility. People expect you as a mom to carry the things, to make sure people get fed. You're thinking about the needs of others constantly. And then your children will start to adopt that, especially your firstborn. So the rooster is looking around and seeing, where's some food? Where's the danger? I need to, what do I need to be doing right now to keep my flock healthy and happy and safe? And so that's what a leader is. That's what you're training your children to be. So discuss this with them, look at the rooster and see what characteristics do they have, does the rooster have, and then does each child have? And they're going to be developing them. So that's the next part. How do they learn to become a leader? So in the picture here, we have the rooster. He's probably found some food and he's dropped it on the ground. And he makes his little noise. Hey, ladies. Yes, I speak fluent Spanish and fluent rooster and chicken. And so he makes his little noise and he drops the food back on the ground. He finds something luscious. And that my favorite rooster, Casey, he did this all the time. His favorite food was, well, I won't tell you. I guess I have to tell you now. Lunch meat. So any kind of lunch meat. So it's cooked, but he loved lunch meat. Maybe because it's salty. But he would still, if there's no hens around, he would eat it. If there were hens around, or there were just any chicken around, the little babies all the way to other roosters, he would hold it in his mouth, recognize what it is, and then put it down with his beak and call others to him. Sometimes he would break up the nuts or whatever it is that I gave him. He would break it up for them and then step back and let them know, here's food, and they would all rush to him. So how did he learn that? The Lord just put it in him. He was just a really good rooster. He's a really good leader. But how do we learn? How do the children learn? By seeing it done well. So this is a cool thing that you can do with your hens and your roosters. You can just show them, look, this is a good rooster. And you do get bad roosters, okay? Sometimes you get bad roosters that are just selfish little, meanies. They don't do what they're supposed to do. And so, but not all roosters are leaders, frankly, but the good ones are. Another way to learn to become a leader is experiencing it, right? If your student has ever been in a classroom or a group or a field trip or a sport where they have been led poorly and they see that that wasn't just, or that really was chaotic, or whatever experience they had, when it's negative or when it's positive, discussing that and helping them to decide what went well in that event and what went poorly. So if they experience a negative leadership event, or if they experience a good leadership event, both of those things are teaching them. So they can see the roosters whenever it's a good rooster and say, man, that one's really good. He doesn't create problems. He breaks up problems when there are. He always makes sure that the flock is safe, and he's looking around constantly. That's a good rooster. Then you have other roosters that just pick fights, cause problems, hog the food, knock the little hens out of the way, things like that. And you go, I don't want to be that kind of leader. So this is how you learn, is by mimicking, recognizing, and discussing their experiences, good or bad. And then receiving feedback. So when you see your child be a good leader, then you give them good feedback. Whenever you see on TV or in a movie or a situation after they're out of it, you can't always give good feedback or negative feedback when they're under an authority that's not doing it well. But after they're outside of that authority, you can discuss with them what that parent or adult did well, or maybe it's another child, like a speech and debate club. We had good speech presidents in the club. And then one year we had a not so good speech president. And so after they were no longer under that authority, we could discuss the pros and cons. But you don't want to ever undermine the authority of their leadership while they're experiencing it. So that's another tip. What a good leader does, right? You don't undermine authority. You come alongside and you help. Okay, so what do we look for? How do we actually help these children of ours become leaders? Well, they're servant leaders. And so a good rooster is somebody who, like I said, grabs the food, lays it down. Somebody who serves others first. They are the last one into the coop. They're willing to sacrifice. This is why we don't have Casey anymore. I mean, he would be gone anyhow. He would have been so old. We've had chickens for so long. But Casey sacrificed himself for the flock. He fought off a hawk, and he didn't make it. But he protected the 5 or 6 little hens that were around him, and he runs to the problem. I don't know, how far roosters think as far as sacrificing their life, but he wasn't scared. And so I'm going to get teary-eyed over my rooster. But leaders are willing to sacrifice. Sometimes you're willing to sacrifice your good name. Like, you're going to take the fall if people are talking bad about your group or your event or whatever it is. You take the fall. You take the blame. You're willing to sacrifice all the way up to your life. We know the fathers of our children are, the father of our children is willing to sacrifice his life to protect ours. And so it doesn't always have to call upon your life, but sometimes it calls upon that extra piece of cake, or getting to see something first, or making sure that a younger child is warm, because you're not going to catch cold if you don't have a jacket today, but your little brother, your little sister could, because they're smaller and they don't have as much body mass. So you give them your jacket. So you're willing to sacrifice, be a little uncomfortable, take a little bit of a back seat to be a servant leader, to be a good leader, and demonstrate love for those younger ones. Put themselves last, same idea. Eating last, doing everything last, making sure others go ahead of you. First up, last out. So the rooster is the first one up. So he is the first one out of the coop. He's making sure he looks around the yard. He comes out first every time. He is at that door. We have a solar panel thing that opens up and then closes. So when the sun comes up, it automatically opens. And then when the sun goes down, it automatically closes. He is always the last one to go back into the coop, and he's the first one out, checking and being ready and surveying the situation. Same thing. As leaders of our own family, we need to be the first up. For a while, it's not easy because you have the babies and you need your sleep. So sometimes you can't always beat your toddler, to be up. But as you get out of that, the age where you're feeding babies throughout the night, being up before your children is a big deal. Not only to prepare yourself, give yourself that quiet time, but also to show them what a leader does. Being loud when necessary. So roosters will have, there's a regular, just kind of like, hey, this is my territory, crow. And then there's the time whenever there's danger. If they crow all the time, nobody pays attention, right? If they're making these calls, if they're constantly yelling, they're constantly making noise, this is a really big deal. Nobody pays attention. But you need to be loud. Our children need to be loud. Our children need to sound the alarm only when necessary, so that we pay attention. So if they're constantly tattling, if they're constantly giving information, if we're constantly giving too much information or correcting all the time, we become less effective whenever it is important. Same with the rooster. So, that alarm call that the rooster does, used to be we had one that would just crow when a leaf would fall, and that shrill alarm, but not Casey. He only made that alarm call. He would, this is my territory, maybe 3 times a day, throughout the day. But at night, if I heard Casey crow, I knew there's something happening. And so it's usually a raccoon or a skunk or something like that. And so we would head out to the chicken yard. We knew that he was not crying wolf. It was real. So this is what leaders do. They sound the alarm when necessary, but not on little piddly things. If, the water's cold. No, you don't need to crow about that. Oh, I think she has too much feed and I don't have enough. No, you don't crow about that. So paying attention to the roosters and these areas will hopefully give you and your children a kind of fun way to learn about leadership, to raise them as good roosters and not yucky roosters, not pills, but as good leaders. And so pay attention to your flock if you have chickens already. If you don't have a male chicken, you only have hens because you don't want the crowing and you don't need roosters to get eggs anyhow. And so you're like, hey, I'll just skip the whole rooster part. One of your hens will likely take that position. It's called the pecking order, right? And so somebody will actually kind of make those calls. They won't crow exactly, but they'll sound kind of like a crow when there's problems and things like that. So even if you don't have a rooster, this is something that you can watch for and help to teach your children and learn from yourself, is how good of a leader am I? And therefore, am I being a good experience for my children, a good leadership experience, or one that needs work? And we continue to, iron sharpens iron and become the best leader we can so that we can continue to raise leaders in our homeschool. I hope this helps you. If you need any help with Spanish stuff, Flip Flop Spanish and Spanish Geniuses is also my other gig.